Some stories hit the walls of your logic. You say, that can't be true, or there must be a catch, but the file I'll share today shatters the unshakable walls of science. This is not an urban legend or internet fiction. This is a real-life drama from Mexico's dusty medical archives, sealed with university reports, DNA tests, and official police records. Puebla, Mexico. Date, March 12, 2019. On stage is a 4-year-old boy who can't even tie his laces, whose world consists of toy cars, Diego Vázquez. Right across him are the memories of a half-finished, shattered, and blood-stained life from 32 years ago, 1,000 kilometers away. By the end of this video, your brain will scream impossible, but the evidence will say this happened. If you're ready, let's go to that morning that pushed the limits of reason. That morning in San Manuel, a peaceful neighborhood in Puebla, everything was perfectly ordinary. The fresh spring air of March leaks through open windows, mixing with the smell of fresh coffee from the kitchen. Mother Maria Elena was preparing breakfast, listening to the tiny footsteps of Diego playing in his upstairs room, amidst the routine noise of the house. Everything was as it should be, until that thud, the dull, bone-chilling sound of a hard object hitting the stairs. A muffled boom, followed by a deadly silence. It took only seconds for Maria Elena to rush from the kitchen to the hallway, but those seconds stretched like a lifetime. Diego lay at the bottom of the stairs. His neck was bent at an odd, unnatural angle, his eyes open, but fixed on the void, his tiny body stiff. In that moment, the world stopped. As Maria Elena's scream faded into the echo of the street, the fabric of time in this small house in Puebla was about to be permanently disrupted. The emergency room corridors, the annoying squeak of stretcher wheels, and the sharp, sterile smell. Diego's condition was beyond critical. A severe concussion, internal bleeding, and a weak heart about to stop. When doctors swarmed the room, the rhythmic beep on the monitor suddenly turned into a flat line and a piercing, long sound. Clinical death occurred. That small 4-year-old body severed its weak bond with life for the first time at that moment. Doctors fought with all their might. Shock devices were prepared. Adrenaline needles flew through the air. Father Jose knelt in the corner, praying to a god he had never named before. CPR worked after 4 minutes. The heart started beating again, but just when it seemed over, Diego flatlined a second time. 10 minutes later, a second stop, a second resuscitation. Doctors would later write in medical reports that his recovery without brain damage was impossible. But Diego returned. Yet, what was truly terrifying was who returned inside that tiny body. Diego stayed in the deep, pitch-black sleep of anesthesia for 48 hours. His family feared he wouldn't recognize them. On the morning of March 15th, Diego suddenly opened his eyes. His first reaction wasn't a sweet cry for mom. He looked at the ceiling and took a deep, rasping breath, as if he had just carried a heavy burden. He asked the nurse with the authority of an adult, "Where is Dr. Mendoza? What happened to the others in the conflict zone? Did we complete the evacuation? We had to save everyone. There was blood everywhere." "I remember." The nurse froze, dropping the blood pressure monitor. A 4-year-old was talking about evacuation, conflict zones, and casualties. When Maria Elena reached out to hug him, Diego pushed her away gently, but firmly. His gaze was foreign, lacking the innocence of a child. "Mommy, don't cry," Diego said, but his voice sounded like a stranger's. "I didn't die. Well, at least not now. But the last time I died, I was Carlos. I remember that dark hallway in Guadalajara. The bullet entered right here, above my heart. It was cold, Maria. It was so cold." Dr. Roberto Mendoza, head of pediatric neurology, smiled when he first heard about this case. To him, it was typical post-traumatic confusion and anesthesia. A child's imagination blending with trauma. There had to be a scientific explanation. Dr. Mendoza entered the room to check on Diego. Diego was sitting upright in bed, looking out the window instead of at his coloring book. Dr. Mendoza took out his stethoscope to begin the routine exam. Right then, Diego spoke. "You're doing it wrong, doctor. Have you forgotten the protocol so soon? For a post-trauma neurological exam, You must start with light pupil reflexes and cranial nerve checks. This is basic medical knowledge. They taught us assistants this on the first day in Guadalajara. You shouldn't skip it. Dr. Mendoza's hand froze in midair. A 4-year-old child teaching a neurologist of 15 years the methods of his own expertise. The doctor tried to compose himself and asked with a trembling voice, "Well, little man, how do you know all this?" Diego shrugged with an adult's condescending attitude and continued, "Also, that stethoscope model is very old. I used the Littman cardiology series during those endless nights at the civil hospital in Guadalajara. It gives the clearest mitral valve sounds and the slightest murmurs when listening to the chest. With that old model, you'll only hear a whisper. You can't make a real diagnosis." The blood drained from Dr. Mendoza's face. Littman cardiology, mitral valve, pupil reflex. These weren't words a child would memorize from cartoons. They were part of a terminology ingrained in the language of professionals. Diego didn't stop. He pointed to the reflex hammer in the doctor's hand. "I can tell by your style. Doctor, you're also from Puebla University. Their assistants always hit the reflex to hard. Miguel used to do that too. Miguel Hernandez. He was my supervisor. I still remember that deep, rough scar on his left hand like it was yesterday. A scalpel slipped during a vascular surgery. I can still hear his shouting in the air." With scientific curiosity and deep fear, Dr. Mendoza reached out to the dusty archives of the Guadalajara Civil Hospital. He scanned records dating back to the late 1980s. The answer he received from the archivist was the final nail in the coffin of the doctor's rational worldview. "Yes, doctor," said the official. "In July 1987, we had a brilliant assistant working here. His name was Carlos Mendoza Garcia. He was specializing in surgery. But on the night of July 23rd, during that famous shootout between rival gangs, he died after being shot just above the heart while trying to shield a wounded patient with his own body. His supervisor that night was indeed Dr. Miguel Hernandez, and according to records, Dr. Hernandez had a prominent scar on his left hand from a surgical accident. Carlos was 23 when he died. The details Diego mentioned, the coldness, bullet, conflict, and wounded matched the police records and autopsy reports from 32 years ago perfectly. This information wasn't on the internet. Carlos was remembered as a hero, but his name had vanished into the dusty pages of time. It was impossible for little Diego to access these details. For the Vázquez family, it turned into an uncanny reality. Diego now refused to play with his toy cars. He hated being spoken to like a baby by his father at dinner and addressed his mother as Senora. One midnight, he went to his father in tears and said, "Dad, we have to go now. My mother Rosa, she still thinks I'm in that hospital morgue. I feel her crying at my grave every night for 32 years. I need to tell her I'm not dead. We must go to that house with the blue door." The 700-kilometer road from Puebla to Guadalajara was not just a distance for the Vázquez family, it was where logic ended. There was a heavy silence in the car. Diego acted like a GPS in the back seat. "We'll turn right at the next exit. There should be a large, burnt oak tree. It was struck by lightning." His father, Jose, turned off the navigation and took the exit Diego mentioned, and right there stood the massive, scorched oak tree. As they neared the city, Diego's restlessness grew. His hands trembled, tugging at his shirt. "I remember this place," he whispered. "The church bell in this square rang twice on Sundays. My mother, Rosa, always left the house at the second bell." Once in the city, Diego gave directions without needing a GPS. "Turn left. Now go 2 blocks ... That bakery is closed. An apothecary is there now. And finally, that street." They stopped in the narrow streets of San Juan Dios. Diego bolted as soon as the car door opened. He stopped at a house with a blue door and faded paint. Diego didn't knock. He sat on the marble step and began to sob. In that moment, he wasn't a 4-year-old child, but the soul of a man 32 years late getting home. The door slowly opened. An older woman in her 70s appeared. Rosa Garcia, Carlos's mother, who had buried him 32 years ago. "Mama Rosa, I'm here. I came back as I promised, but it took a while. Please don't be afraid. Look at my hands. They smell like yours." Rosa was shaken by the tone of the voice she heard. Diego looked into her eyes. Mother, remember my graduation photo in your bedroom? You hid it among the wool blankets at the very back of the wardrobe, so my father wouldn't see. And that night, the night I was shot, as I was leaving, you said, "Take your jacket, it's going to get cool." I didn't listen. You were right, Mother. It was so cold that night. Rosa collapsed on the spot. This was not information a stranger could know. This was a secret that had lived only in a mother's conscience for 32 years. When they entered the house, Diego acted as if he were in his own home, not a foreign place. He opened the kitchen drawers one by one and said, "The tip of this spoon is still bent. I bent it when I was little." Suddenly, Diego headed to the bathroom. He approached the mirror. He wrapped his fingers under the wooden molding and pulled it toward him. The mirror opened with a hidden hinge. Even Rosa didn't know there was a space behind that mirror. There was a small niche carved into the wall. Diego took out a yellowed envelope. "I put this here on the morning of July 23rd, 1987, Diego said. "I wanted this secret to go with me, so Rosa wouldn't be sad if something happened to me." Inside the envelope were photos of Carlos's secret love at the time, Ana Maria, and an engagement ring. Rosa took the ring in her hands, weeping. Diego continued, "Not just this, Mother. Come to the garden. Remember the fig tree, 30 centimeters under, where the roots meet. There's a metal box. Ana Maria's letters are there. There's a secret in those letters. A secret even I couldn't see." Jose and Dr. Mendoza began to dig. Finally, they found a rusted biscuit tin. In the last letter, Ana Maria wrote, "Carlos, I can't hide it anymore. I have a part of you inside me. We're going to have a son. We should celebrate this." Everyone in the room gasped. Carlos had learned he would have a child, but didn't live long enough to see him. Diego pressed the letter to his chest. "I need to find him. I need to find Miguel." The investigation lasted a week. Ana Maria was found, and she had a son, 32-year-old Miguel. Miguel had grown up thinking the man his mother married was his father. The meeting took place in a park. Miguel tried to leave, saying, "This is nonsense." Diego called out after him, "Miguel, is that small red birthmark behind your right ear still there? Your mother told me that mark was the signature of our lineage, and didn't you ever wonder why the man you call father never looked like you? Because that man is left-handed. Miguel, you, like me, are strictly right-handed. You have the hands of a surgeon." Miguel froze. No one knew about the mark behind his ear. A UNAM team stepped in. A DNA test was conducted under Dr. Carmen Mendoza. Miguel's DNA was compared with samples from Carlos's surviving siblings. When the results arrived, the lab was in shock. Miguel was not the son of his legal father. Miguel was, with 99.9% certainty, the biological son of Carlos Mendoza Garcia. 4-year-old Diego had uncovered a 32-year-old paternity secret based on no data, only by remembering. Now, let's put all these pieces together. What do we have? A 4-year-old boy experiences clinical death twice and wakes up speaking as a completely different identity. He teaches a neurologist of 15 years a medical protocol in a city he's never visited. He finds a secret compartment known to no one. And finally, he proves a man is his biological son, when the man himself didn't even know. Can you call this coincidence? Imagination? No. I've believed in evidence all my life, and the Diego Vázquez file is the hardest evidence ever put before me. Carlos Mendoza Garcia returned to complete the life he left unfinished in that Guadalajara, his debt to his mother, and his responsibility to the son he never saw. Death, for Carlos, was not an end, but just a gear shift. Mexican medical archives labeled this file an unexplained phenomenon and shelved it. But for Rosa Garcia, he's no longer a label. He's her son Carlos, who visits every weekend. My opinion on this is clear. Some souls cannot find peace without finishing their business in this world. And sometimes those souls borrow the voice of a small child to scream the truth. Believe what you want. But that DNA report, that rusty metal box, and Diego's age gaze are still right there. Now I ask you, if you knew you were going to die today, what secret would you take to the grave? And in whose body Would you want to wake up 30 years later to scream that secret? Let's meet in the comments, but please, if you can't disprove this evidence, don't call it fake. Because reality is sometimes much scarier than fiction,